here with you guys. We could be anywhere. You all chose to be here, and it's a plum peach and pleasure for me to be in fellowship with you. Thank God for using me and still considering me as a vessel to be used. I pray that the words and the meditations that are upon my heart are found fruitful in your lives. Uh, Take it seriously, and I think that you take it seriously to make the sacrifice and commitment to be here. And with that being said, it's important to me to invest value into your lives. So it is always my prayer to the Lord, while it is His will that matters, but it is my prayer. Uh, Give me something meaningful. Uh, Help me to hear something meaningful that doesn't just check off a box for people, but really gives us something that uh, not just we can sink our teeth into, but that we can use. Uh, I think that uh, speakers want to have something to say, but teachers want to say something in such a manner that people understand it.
Amen.
And that something that can benefit. So I thank you, and I appreciate your time and your commitment. And thank those who are visiting with us online for being with us. We invite you to be with us in person at appointed time of convenience. To that end, my flight plan is taken from Matthew chapter 7. So let's buckle up. You can see back in your tray tables in that upright and locked position. Let's get at it. Push these throttles forward. Want to borrow from Ashford and Simpson is probably the only thing that comes to mind when I think about, well, several things come to mind when I think about them. But I want to take off on the subject solid as a rock. I think about that. Think about how tall. I don't know which one he is, Ashford or Simpson, but think about how tall he is, and I think about how stringy that little hair thing he had going on was. That's about it. And what an interesting couple they were. But solid as a rock always rings in my head. It's one of those hooks, one of those songs, one of those verses. But it's interesting as my meditation has been on this week, how that really came to me because they're talking about, I believe, the strength of a relationship and the strength of possibly their relationship and how solid it was. And to signify how solid it was like it's solid as a rock. Uh, think it's Prudential, one of those insurance companies that talks about how solid they are, and built on that same principle. Um, I don't know how close we are. I think that was more symbolic of the agricultural days. It's certainly symbolic of for mariners, but I don't know how close we still are today to the idea and principle of the rock. Um, when I think of the rock, I think of movies. Some people might think of the wrestler, The Rock, but I think of the movie The Rock, which takes us to Alcatraz. That prison that was built on an island, a rock in the middle of the water. But I wonder what people think about. A lot of folks Think about diamond. Yeah, I hit you there, Sister Ted. We go get that rock. That diamond. But there is a strength. There is a stability always. There's a firmness that people think about, a stability that people think about, regardless pretty much of whichever way they go with that rock. It is something that is impenetrable. Uh, and we wanna talk about strength and stability this morning. Jesus has some things that he is teaching in the quoted in the gospel according to Matthew, excuse me. In the chapter 7, there's a lot of goodness there. I'm gonna read the text and then I'm gonna go and drop into a couple of other points beginning in verse 15 because we have talked about fruits a little bit this morning. So I'll go back up into that. I think that context is also relevant to the text. But beginning in verse 24, he says, "Therefore, whoever hears these sayings of mine and does them," thank you for that, Jesus, because it's more than just hearing.
Preach. Preach.
"But whoever hears these sayings of mine and does them, I will liken him to a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, and it did not fall." Interesting because on last week we were talking about the winds blowing and the waves coming. We were talking about Jesus on that boat when they pushed out a little bit further and what happened. The winds and the waves do come. In this case, the winds descended and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on the house, and it did not fall, for it was founded on the rock. But everyone who hears these sayings of mine and does not do them, because you can hear it and do, or you can hear it and not do. It is a choice. But for those who do not do them, I will liken them as a foolish man who built his house on the sand, and the rain descended, the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, and it fell, and great was its fall. And so it was when Jesus had ended these sayings that the people were astonished at his teachings, for he taught them as one having authority and not as the scribe. It's interesting to me in both stories from last week to this week, in my opinion, people keep getting caught up in the wrong thing. What matter of man is this? Was their takeaway last week that even the winds obey him, and then once again it's like, wow, this guy, who is he? He's not even like he's beyond the scribes. I think it's like many of us say today, look, if I got something to share with you and it's not necessarily something you want to hear, look, don't shoot the messenger. I think that the people keep getting caught up and distracted with the messenger. Can you leave the messenger, leave me out, and can you get the message? I talked about briefly this morning. It's not so much about what you think about me. Please don't do a lot of thinking about me, and it's not a whole lot about the delivery, and it's not really about where we are and how many people are here or how many people are not here. It's really about what are you hearing? What are you hearing? Because the Holy Spirit, whose work, as you said, Brother Jay, is being done still even to this day. The Holy Spirit is trying to say something to you. It's really not relevant. It's not super relevant about everything else. It's not super relevant about who the deliverer is, and trust and believe. We, amongst our believers, can get all caught up in the messenger, who it should be, who it shouldn't be. But it's not so much about that. And we can get caught up in who's showing up and who's not showing up, why they not showing up, what time they showing up. We can get all caught up in all of that. What order we doing stuff in or not doing it in. What position the chairs are in. Like we can get all caught up in that. But did you hear anything relevant to you? Is a real important question to be raised. Because God has something he wants to say to you. But deeper than did you hear what God has to say to you, what are you going to do about it? I can't emphasize that enough week after week. What are you going to do? Just realized got Gina's credit card. Reached the gas for her yesterday and get that back. Y'all want to go out? No, might not be good. But anyway, just happened to reach in my pocket and feel that. Week after week, it's real important to me to emphasize to you that it's not going to change unless you change. It's not going to happen unless you make it happen. And if you are, waiting on some magical thing, that's not where it is. It's about what are we going to do today, not tomorrow either. What are we going to do today to make a difference in tomorrow? So I hope that we are hearing with the opportunity to take advantage of that which the Spirit had in store for me. The story today is about two men. The message, therefore, is about these two men. And what's interesting that I think about this particular story as Jesus is teaching is that these two men are really nondescript. Well, we don't get their name because really he's speaking metaphorically. But even without respect to their name, we don't get very much more about them. Age, race, not gender, but well, even that. We don't get a lot of the details, and it's interesting because those things are irrelevant. That the fact of the matter is without respect to that. And I wanna drive that home because we live in a society and we come out of a culture, most specifically where we are persuaded, seduced into the thought that things are really what is the word? Really preferential for, that's not really the exact word, but work with me for a minute, that really many things are happening because folks are white. Many things are not happening because folks are black. This, that, or the other because we're male, or this, that, and the other because they're female, and or age, the older, the younger, and all of these different things. But by and large, we have to remember. We have to remember. Most of those things are not the real things, and they're not really the most relevant things. They do exist. We know we live in a racial society. We know we live in a what is it, a plutocracy. We live in a society where the money matters. We we know that we live in a society that is divided by all kinds of different things like gender, and age, and all of those things are real. But we live in a world governed by God and organized and constructed upon the principles of God. And at the end of the day, work with me, church, and at the end of the day, you will not escape God, no matter who you are. And what really drives this, and this is what is important for the children of God to hear and remember, particularly when we leave this place, because you're going to see all kinds of things when you leave this place. And it's important that we don't get distracted by that. The true fact of the matter is that what really drives the world that we live in are the laws that are set in place. I don't care if you're black or white, the sun's going down at the end of the day. And I don't care if you like it or not, the sun's coming up at the top of the day. And you can be mad about it, but fire burns and cold freezes. It doesn't do you well to plant your garden in the winter. Rich or poor, doesn't matter. And what Jesus is bringing out for us in this is there are two men. And these men are, for all intents and purposes, because he didn't bring it up, these men are good people. They're just two people. There's no advantage over the other because of this, that, and the other. They're just two good people given an opportunity in this thing called life. But at the end of the day, what makes the difference is not really who they are. That's what God wanted us to understand. That's why I didn't really break it down where this guy was black and this guy was white, or this guy was a sinner and this guy was a saint. This guy was young and this guy was old. Two guys given the opportunity of like two humans born into existence. But the two do not have the same end result. Teaches Jesus one has a great outcome and the other has a very devastating outcome. And it's interesting to me that after this teaching, the folks was like, man, Jesus is an interesting individual. What a teacher he is. Versus what they should have been really focused in on is, my gosh, that one guy, I'm not exactly clear, Jesus, why he did or what he did, but I'd like a little bit more iteration, please, on that because his ending was not good. Nothing here about that. And oh, Jesus, wow, now this other guy, I'm fascinated by him because he seemed to have really, in the end, it worked out. No, the focus, Jesus is teaching, and they caught up on the messenger. And he was teaching fundamental principles, profound principles that will govern our future. Oftentimes, we get lost either in the messenger or oftentimes in the outer appearances of things. Oh, they got it because they just part of the good old boy network. They just part of the system. Jesus is like, what network is superior to me? What system is operating outside of my permission? What race is more superior than me when all races began with me anyway? What is age? Jesus, God is like, what? Why are you so caught up in these things? What you should be focused on is what I'm telling you. But you don't seem to find that sweet at all. Two guys, but their outcomes in the end were very different. Let's go back for a minute because this is interesting. Beginning in verse 15, beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing. Well, we really should start at 13. Actually, it's the whole chapter that's good. But I'm going to back up because I do want to get into that asking, seeking, and knocking. But, Mama said, don't try to preach all the sermons in one day. So I'm going to just leave that be. And enter by the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction. There are many who go in by it, because narrow is the gate and difficult is the way which leads to life, and there are few who find it. Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves. You will know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Even so, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a bad tree bear good fruit. And every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down, thrown into the fire. Therefore, by their fruits you will know them. By their fruits you will know them. Judge a tree by the fruit that it bears. For the fruit will tell you the nature of its origin. Why? Because seeds reproduce after their own kind. What is Jesus? Jesus is laying down the laws of the land. And he's trying to tell his followers how this game of life works. You shall know them by their fruit. One of the first things that we can understand is that, well, what if folks ain't got no fruit? That's a good question. What if you roll, because you shall know them by their fruit, but let's be clear, we can roll up on some folks, and some folks ain't got no fruit at all. Barren. When you roll up on a situation and it is barren, you really want to just drive on by and keep going. This is important because barrenness, emptiness, come on, it's like getting the invitation. Y'all remember back in the high school, junior high school days, getting an invitation to a party. That's a big thing, Cole, you going to the party. But it's a very disappointing thing when you roll up to the party and you find, yeah, I think this is the right address, and your parents, drop you off and you're so glad to kick them off in their own way. And then you roll up and the house is empty. Anybody remember what I'm talking about? It's like your excitement just, like a pin in a balloon. The shoo, right? Because like, man, it's just a big empty. Where is everybody? This ain't gonna be no good time. Remind me of your son, Ted. This ain't no good time. I'm all dressed up, and ready to get it, and ain't nobody dancing. Ain't no, Our expectation is we going to a party, and you expect. Watch this now. You expect life. Mine is for making merry. It's something about that joyful spirit, that aliveness, that there's a sense of joy. You talked about it earlier, Jason. Joy, peace, happiness. These are the fruits of the spirit. These are the symbols of life. And if I roll up to a place expecting life, two people come together and get married in this spirit called love. There's an expectation of offspring, of life. That is, the first thing counselor wants to know when the couple come to marriage counseling is, well, how's your, sex life? because it's an indicator that if there's love and there's joy and there's peace there and there's life, there's going to be activity, there's going to be some getting to know one another, and the natural byproduct of that is fruit. So families and couples, there's an expectation. Matter of fact, when young couples are being counseled, and we get to that part about budget, there is a lesson that goes out, particularly to men, that there is some preparation that you should be putting in place. You probably had this talk with Brother Marcus. Keith, there's some preparation that you should be putting in place, because there's a natural expectation that there's going to be children. So you shouldn't get down the line and then get caught out there, when the wife is like, well, I want to stay home with the kids, and you're like, oh man, well, what we gonna do? When you should have already thought about that, because one kind of presumes the next is what the natural expectation should be. If you put a seed in the ground, you should expect something to come up. If you're going to come together in the name of love, there is a natural expectation that probably from that is going to come some offspring. The point is, if everything works naturally, and if you haven't put something aside with that in mind, that you're going, it's like having a car and having no budget for maintenance. Talk to me, church. I mean, we do that, but we do that all the time. But that's nonsensical. That's illogical. That's buffoonery. That's foolish. We're going to get to in a minute. Jesus is laying down the laws here. And he says, you need to understand there should be some fruit. But watch this. So if you roll up and there ain't no fruit, first of all, and you need to skip by the situation that ain't got no fruit at all. This is why I keep trying to re-emphasize and putting the pressure on us as a church, as believers in Christ. This is bad advertising for the Lord if we ain't got no fruit. Stop with that. We got the gospel, and we got we are the people of the book, and we are the ones. This is bad advertising. That's arrogant to just try to come out and be so pompous and like we are it. You ain't proven that you are the children of God just because you can hold up the Bible and say, we know in Romans 16:16, what thus saith the Lord, that salute them with the kiss, the churches of Christ. That's not impressive. Jesus is not impressed with that. Jesus says, so what? When I was in the wilderness with the devil, he was quoting scripture. When the serpent slid up on Eve, he was talking about what God said. So just because you can come out and start talking about what Paul wrote to the Galatians or to the Romans or to the Corinthians, and just because you know that Habakkuk is in the Old Testament and Hebrews is in the New Testament, and just because you know all of that, it's not proof positive that you are walking with God. What is proof positive that you are walking with God? That if you are a tree, if you are a branch in the tree of Christ, there ought to be some fruit. And if I roll up on you and your basket is empty, shame on you talking about you are yoked to Jesus, because that is to say, if your fruit basket is empty and you are yoked to Jesus, that Jesus is impotent. One of y'all is messed up. If your basket, are y'all with me? If your basket is empty, just shame on us as the church to be standing up and declaring boldly. I mean, we're getting up on chairs talking about we are it, and we're the only one. And I got to get that kind of criticism from folks all the time. What I don't like about the Church of Christ is y'all think y'all the only one. That's where we at. With empty baskets.
you might want to go back and double check. Are we really plugged in? He said, now the fruit. I want you to check them out. The fruit. Oh, well, you shall know us by our love. Right. We don't even talk to half the folks in the congregation. Stop with that, man. You should know. Love produces, first of all. So you think you can just kind of hide behind that love thing because you hug folks and whatnot. Love serves. Love creates. Love is a powerful force that gets things done. Love is not just something that we can hang on our hats on and just say, well, yeah, we members of the church because the only way you know us by our love. Aren't we a warm people? That's not enough, saints. Come on, stop playing. The devil is creating warm atmospheres. The gang house is warm. The pimp house is warm. For a little while at least. Just because we warm, where's the fruit? You shall know them by their fruit. Now let me tell you another thing. You should have showed up last week when I had some fruit. Come on now. It's kind of like when you go visit your college student, and like, we good for man. Ain't got no food this week. Right? You should have came last week, but this week I'm all out. Come on, get in the car. We're going to take you to dinner, because we know you ain't got no food. We know you had some, but it's all gone. Amen. And many of us, we real good in talking about yesterday's success. But Babe Ruth said yesterday's home runs won't win today's game. Oh man, I had some fruit. I wonder where they would have been if the wisdom of Joseph hadn't come along and said, look, now we're in the season of prosperity, right. But in order for us to be all right, we're going to have to put some stuff aside while we are in the season of prosperity, because there's going to come another season where it's going to be lean. But watch this now, because here's the thing that the Lord has laid down. Life has laws and principles, and life works in seasons and cycles. And so you're in a season of prosperity, but while we're on the mountaintop, there's a valley to come into. You got to be prepped like the ant for the valley in order that you can show up on the next mountaintop. It's a cycle. Or where I really want to set my thrust, or are you a one-hit wonder? Y'all remember them one-hit wonders? Mm-hmm. I'm sure you got some in your mind right now. Some folks that came on, poof, was a flash in the pan, thought you had some gold, but that's fool's gold after you done shuffled just a flash in the pan. They were here for a minute and then gone. I love these entertainers, like, the ones that come to mind for me is like the gotta talk about my homegirl, the Patti LaBelle's, the Gladys Knights, the Stephanie Mills, folks that can still go out and perform and been around for decades, performing for decades. The Stevie Wonders, just been here and here and here and here, the Lionel Richies, you know, the Smokey Robinson, Smokey Robinson, all of these folks who have just continued to make it and make it and produce and be here year after year. But then you've got those Milli Vanillis, those Vanilla Ices, those tone lokes, they've been here one time, hit hard, and then was gone. And it's kind of like, yeah, man, you should have came last week. It's the fisherman with the fish toys, man. You should have been at one time. I had that one time. I had that big one on. You remember John Teller when I had that big man? Come on. What about today? Where you at today? If you that good, where's your success today? Because Jesus says in over in John that I not only want you to be fruitful, I'm not only going to bless you to be fruitful, but that your fruit should remain. That your fruit should remain. The thing about understanding laws and principles is that they'll take you from situation to situation to situation. You might have to adjust for circumstances, but they work again and again and again. So that you're not just a one-hit wonder. Because here's the thing. A broke clock is right twice a day. And you'll be broke. So the fact that you can be a flash in the pan, the fact that you can hit an accidental hole in one, the fact that you can hit a home run, bowl a strike, get a date, where are you going to be at the end of the day? Doesn't matter how fast you came out of the gate, where are you going to be at the end of the day? When the roll is called, will you be in the number? When the cut for this round is made, will you be in the cut and will you make it to the next qualifying round? Will you be in it? Because if you are going to be on Jesus' team, he says now, in the end, you're going to have to be there in the final analysis because you represent me. Who is going to stand on the podium? It's a lot of folks come out the gate in the marathon, but who in the end is going to be standing on the podium? He says, now I'm training for my folks. I'm training for folks that's going to be hanging banners in the rafters, that's going to have championships underneath their belt. You can always count on them. Franchise type player. How do you get there? 2 men. 2 men. Born into the same life. But there's something about these men. What it is their decision making. Their decision making. Not everyone, verse 21, it says to me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father in heaven. Not everyone, not everyone. There's some interesting things being brought out here. The narrow way, the fruit remaining. He's trying to distinguish that life is an equal opportunity. I know people don't want us to believe that, but life is an equal opportunity. For God has no respect of person. Life is an equal opportunity. Doesn't really matter who you are. If you grab the principles of life, you can't be stopped. Young, old, black, white, male, female, cripple, not cripple, arms, no arms, legs, no legs, can speak, can't speak, know the language, don't know the language, got eyes, don't have eyes, cockeyed, not cockeyed, smell good, don't smell good. It doesn't really matter. If you can be alive and grab the principles, this is why no matter who, no matter what excuse you put down, there's an example to blow it out the water. Well, they only did it because they only made it because if I just had, well, here's an example of folks that didn't have that. If look, it doesn't matter. Life is an equal opportunity. I hope I can get this across. I know I'm pretty much preaching to the choir, but this is important. It's important to me because I don't know about you, but the demons play tricks on me in my head all the time as well. And you've got to be refreshed on this. Life is an equal opportunity. We think, man, why is it happening for these people and not happening for me? And it's got to be Jesus says two guys born into the same world. It doesn't really matter who they are, what they have, what they don't have. What you need to hear is these two guys made decisions. And it's the decisions, the choices that they made, and the quality of those decisions that really govern the final analysis. It's the quality of our decisions, saints. It's the quality of our choices, and the operative word is on quality. Because we're going to make decisions and we're going to make choices even when we don't make decisions and choices. We've still made decisions and choices. But what kind of decisions and choices are we making? Because it is that is really impacting our bottom line. What is it about these? There's going to be many people that say to me, Lord, I'm lining up, I'm on your side. But on that day, don't matter what they say. Oh, I'm going to be a winner. Oh, I'm going to be the best man to you that you could ever go have. It don't matter what people say. How many of us that had children that's done told us what they going to run off and do? Well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to show you. Yeah, everybody talk that talk, man. Talk is easy. But show me your fruit. Look at me now. What you do coming out the gate ain't that significant. Because what you don't understand is you just came out the gate. But the game ain't even begun yet. Because life is going to start life. So talk to me at the end of the game. I'll be at the finish line. I'll be at the end of the first quarter. You can tell me, oh, look at me shine. Boom, I'm out the gate. I just hit that 3-pointer. Okay. Let's see what happens when they start smacking your 3-pointer into the rafters. Let's see what happens when they switch up their defense. Let's see what happens when things start shifting. Yeah, everybody's good in the first 5 minutes. Let's see what happens when your legs start getting heavy. Let's see what happens when you start getting out of breath. Let's see what happens when the referees start calling the game the other way. It's always good in the first couple of minutes. But when life starts life, look at us. We all posting on Instagram, all in love, y'all everywhere. It's just the first month of your marriage. It's all right. It's all right. We see where you at. In a little while, when life starts lifing, 2 men in the script. But Jesus says, whoever hears these sayings of mine and does them, I will liken him to this man. Hears my sayings and does them. I will liken him to this man. What man? This man. Who's his name? His name is irrelevant. What kind of man was he? That's irrelevant. How much money did he have? Jesus? No, not important. When was he born? Not relevant. Is he white or black? You're asking the wrong questions. Not important. What is important? He built his house on the rock. He built his house on the rock. Now, you got to understand the significance of that. Because a lot of times, we're concerned about building the house. I can't wait, I'm gonna get out, I'm gonna quit my job, I'm gonna get this business, and I'm gonna get in business for myself, and I'm gonna, change my life, and everything's gonna be great. And then we get out and we build in this business. Oh, I can't wait to get out the house, get rid of my parents, be on my own, and then we out there. We build in the house. Can't wait, until I get me a man. I'm gonna get married. Life's gonna be cool. We build in the house. Oh man. Murphy said, be ever so careful in this thing called the game of life. Murphy stopped there and said, now look, real easy to build stuff. Real easy to get on in some stuff. But it's a lot harder to get out. So when you start talking about you building some stuff, you better make sure you know what you're doing. You better make sure you understand what you're getting into. Jesus said, no problem, but I want you to understand that when you hear me and do the things that I've said, you're like the man that built his house. What kind of house was it, Jesus? Irrelevant. What do you mean? Was it a townhouse? Not important. Was it, a colonial? Not important. Was it a glass house? Not important. Was it a vacation house? Not important. All types of houses, all types of structures, saints. And we all, what is this? What is this thing, this house, these things that we build, that we get into, that we spend our time in, that provide for us? There are all types of houses that you and I build. You've got your personal life as a house. You have your relational life as a house. You have your career as a house. You have your friends, your relationship as a house. All types of houses that we build. But that's not as important as not how we build the house, but where we build the house. The most fundamental thing about building a house is what you build the house on. I understand this as the captain of a boat, because when you are out in the waters and you need to anchor, this is where this rock thing comes in, and you need to anchor. You need to know something about the bottom underneath you. Because if it's important for you to be where you are and not drift away from this spot, which is real important when you're out in the middle of the water with no boundaries and no markers, you need to be able to navigate by position, and you need to be able to control your position. And if you're going to go to sleep at night and wake up and then be able to move on, you need to make sure that where I go to sleep at, I wake up in the same spot. And so when I'm anchoring, I need to know something about the bottom, because if I don't pay attention to the bottom, I might set my anchor, but my anchor might not hold. So it's important. You don't just throw your anchor down and be like, oh, it's good. We drop anchor. It caught, it's good. Why? Why do you not just do that? Because ain't no telling what's going to come up in the middle of the night. But do know that there is the potential and the probability for something to come up in the middle of the night. So it is important for me to make sure that if I'm going to be anchored, which means I want to remain or stay in a position, I need to make sure that my anchor is anchored in something that is solid. Solid as what? Solid as a rock that I can depend on when I lay my head down and get back up, that I'm going to be where I need to be. Because if my anchor is hooked into a rock that is grounded, it will ground me. I wish I could talk about electricity, because there's something about grounding and that metal running into the ground that I can't really explain, but I wish I could. But there's a grounding principle that is in there. He built his house on the rock. Why? Understanding that I need a firm foundation in which to build on. Because I want my house to remain. Is there anything in your life that you want to remain? Let's just start with your life. Do you want your life to remain? Or do you want it to be snuffed out prematurely before you get to the end? How about the quality of your life? Do you want that to remain? How about your children? Do you want them to remain? How about your reputation or your legacy? Do you want that to remain? Heck, let's just get practical. How about your house, the one you live in? Do you want that? Do you want to remain in that? Your job, your career. What about your ability to take care of yourself? Do you want that to remain? Sometimes we don't think about that till we start getting older. What do you want? Do you want anything in your life to remain? How about the peace that you finally found? Do you want that to remain? The prosperity, the joy. What about the faith? What is it in your life that you want to remain? If there is anything in your life that you want to remain, you need to understand, you need to pay attention then to what are you building it on. We want a lot of things in our life, and we want I want my marriage, and I believe that marriage is going to be about joy and happiness, and I want that to remain for as long till death do we part. We want that, but then have we paid attention to what Jesus is saying and doing what he says we ought to do? Or do we even know that Jesus has anything to say about relationships? Are we just jumping in, thinking that because we get in, it's going to remain? Somebody said the fastest way to get back on your feet once you start driving is to miss 2 car payments. Sometimes what if ain't nobody tell you that? You might think, oh, it's going to be good. I opened this letter the other day, and it was like, you missed, we don't know if you know this, but you missed this, and you might need to pay attention. And I was like, man, I'm so glad I opened this letter. I was like, really, it was all kind of nondescript, and I was like, whatever. But it was time sensitive, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad I would have overlooked this, and this was going to be bad. Sometimes, you think you just in something and it's just going to remain, but that junk be changing right up underneath your feet, and you're not paying attention. Oh, you just hoping and believing that things are going to happen. I'm going to get this job and I'm making this good money and it's just going to be like that. You better have some idea of what you're going to do when things start blowing all around. But the immature, you might not think about that, but God is saying you better think about that. And not only you better think about that, I have an expectation of you, because my reputation is on the line. And that is, I need you not only to be fruitful, because folks are going to be checking out your quality based upon the quality of your fruit. Come on, we judge a market by the quality of its produce. Amen. Many of us don't want to go. We don't shop at certain markets because, the produce is not good, and we're examining the product, and so Jesus is saying, look, I'm gonna be examined by the fruit, and I need also for you not to be having excuses. I hate to go. I don't really eat a lot of this stuff anymore, but you can appreciate this. I hated to go to a steak place and they tell me they ain't got no potatoes. How you out of potatoes? You know, and we here at the steak joint. You know, it's steak and potato. We sorry, sir, but we all out of it. You out of potatoes? Y'all had that experience, I'm sure, right? It's like one of the most ludicrous things. I understand if I ordered onion rings and you ain't got no onion rings. I'm a little, you know, this is a steak place. I'm a little bit bothered by that too. But potatoes, that is as bad as not having no steaks. Jesus said, don't let them roll up. And then you be talking about, I'm sorry, you should have came last week when I had some fruit. Ain't got no fruit right now. Yeah. We're not trying to hear no excuses. When he gave out the talents, he came back. Look, now when I come back, we're going to have a report. You don't know when I'm coming, but when I come, don't give me that, Lord. You know, And so when they are examining us, it's like you are a reflection of me. You need to be fruitful, and your fruit needs to be there. Man, long time I ain't seen you, man. How's your marriage going? Oh, man, we've been divorced. We got divorced about 2 weeks after we got married. How the kids doing, man? I ain't seen you in ages. Oh, man. Johnny's in jail, and, you know, Jane's strung out. What? Man, how that business going? Ooh, man, bad subject. Let's not talk about that. I'm still in court with that right now. You know, come on, man. I need your fruit to remain. You need to hear me and do the things that I said. And Jesus said, he built his house on the rock because the rock is stable. When Jesus went to build his church, Jesus said, blessed art thou, Peter, son of Jonah, Bar Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I say unto you that upon this rock I shall build my church. And watch this. Why are you going to do that, Jesus? And the gates of hell should not prevail against it. When I build something, it's going to be there. It's interesting. It's interesting. He says, now, but you got a choice. He said, there's another man. Equally a good man. But the problem with him is he hear me, but he don't do the things that I say. Because we must remember that Jesus says, I will give thee the keys to the kingdom. I need you to hear me because I'm giving you the key to this thing called life. What you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and what's loosed on earth shall be loosed in heaven. I'm giving you the operating systems to this world. And I need you to understand so that when you produce, you are fruitful and you are continuously fruitful. And the way you need to do that is you need to hear me and you need to build on these things now. Or not. You can be like the man who built his house. They both built houses. But he built his house on the sand. It's not enough to get it built so that when people look at it, say, oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, on the surface, it looks the same. Two people go put on the same wedding dress, go through the same processes, you know, at the end of the day. But that don't mean just because we done both did the same thing that we're going to, in the end, be at the same place. We all in business. We all in church. We all in relationships. We all in jobs. We all getting paid a check of some sort. But oh, the results are vastly different. Some of us are making it from decade to decade, like those great artists, and some of us are merely one-hit wonders. We like the broke clock. Yeah, we hit every now and then, but there's no rhythm to us. There's no consistency. You can't set your life around us because our systems are that solid. Geez, Sister Denise all the time is like, look, man, I can set my preaching and the or I don't need a watch. I don't really need to know where we are in the order of worship. When you come walking through the door, I pretty much know what time it is because you consistent in that way. Whatever your systems are, lead you to the same place time and time again, that I can organize my life around. That's how we learn to set up calendars and everything, by things that consistently kept showing. What are your principles? Can I build my life on those same principles? Is it working for you? Will it work for me? Will it work over here? Will it work over there? This is just, if you're going to build a house and you want that house to stand, do not be like the man. He built the house. It's not about the man. That's the nature of this message. It ain't about the man. Don't be fascinated by the house and don't be distracted by the man. Jesus says what you need to pay attention to is the wisdom. The wisdom. Because the first man had the wisdom to know to build his house on a rock versus on the sand. Well, I mean, I don't know what's wrong with the sand. I like the sand. The sand looked good to me. What the wise man knows is that here is the great equalizer of life. This is why life is an equal opportunity. Do not think that it's only preferential to white men or women or da-da-da-da-dee and da-da-da-da-da. Do not be deceived into that. Life is an equal opportunity. Why? Because what is going to be universal, no matter what color you are, no matter what age you are, if you get in the house building business, this is called life. If you get in the house building business, no matter who you are, if you step out striving to build peace, joy, prosperity, whatever the case may be, you step out into this, here's what life is going to bring you. No matter who you are. Just let me know that if you white, it don't rain. If you white and it don't rain where you are, just let me know. You black and it don't rain. You know, it rained big time for us, preacher. You know, you Chinese and it don't rain, let me know. I'm sorry, it only rains where people are old, young, handicapped. Life shows no discrimination with the rain. The wind gonna blow. Listen to this now. Not only is the wind going to blow, but it's gonna beat on your house. I don't care who you are. You can be a Cleveland or a Kardashian. This is what people get distracted by. It doesn't matter. Your hair can be long, it can be short. You can be skinny, you can be big. The wind is going to blow and check the stability of your plan, no matter who you are. The rain's going to descend, the wind's going to blow, the flood's going to rise, and it might be all of them things at the same time. Life has, look, man, you can't predict the combination. You can't predict when it's going to come. I don't care who you are. Oh man, we got all these algorithms and we got it all worked out and we got it all mastery and we getting seduced into thinking, oh man, you know, Amazon and all them, they got the advantage. COVID came when nobody read. COVID said, I don't care if you Amazon or Amazon, it don't matter who you are. We're getting ready to see how much flexibility and dexterity you have, what kind of principles your thing is built on. And man, look, it came through and wiped a lot of folks out. Might not ever come through again for another 100 years, a wind like that. But if your house ain't built on a solid rock, it's going to get washed away. Oh, how unfair it is, man. My business, I was doing good for so long, and all of a sudden, life is fair. You got to ride for a while with your house on the sand, but it was foolish. It was foolish. You highly leveraged, that might have worked forever, but that's still foolish. Got a good man or a good woman and you don't really pour into them, but it's been working, that's foolish. You live in a small town and you getting away with things in your relationship because this ain't happening, that ain't happening because you're in a small town. It's still foolish. Do not build your house on the sand because you can't predict what the winds and the floods and the rain. You can't predict these things, but do know that they are unequivocally, indiscriminately coming for everybody. So what is building our house on the rock? This is all I want to leave you with. What is building our house on the rock? How can we build on solid principles? What is listening to Jesus and doing what Jesus says? What does that really mean and look like for us? What hit me in my meditation, I was watching Creed 3. And I was reminded about Jonathan Majors. I was so proud and so fascinated with him. Jonathan has been on like this trajectory that has been like uphill. He kind of like oh man, what's old girl? She got her own talk show now. That was in Dreamgirls. Jennifer Hudson. Kind of like Jennifer Hudson when Dreamgirls came out. I was like, Beyonce's supposed to be it, but Jennifer kind of like stole the day and then got on her own trajectory. And Jonathan Majors kind of like that same thing. Like we got Creed 3 and definitely Michael B. Jordan is the man, but Jonathan has been on this trajectory that he just kind of just got on this roll and was getting more and more prominence. And I was looking around like after Creed 3 came out, and he was like everywhere. Like he on all of the magazine covers, and he getting all the interviews. And I'm so proud, to see another, black person just go big, especially a black man. And so charismatic and handsome and buff and all that good stuff. And then all of a sudden, I ain't heard nothing else about Jonathan Majors since the report came out about him and some type of domestic violence thing. And all of a sudden, his system then started crashing and burning. I don't know where he is and where all of that is now, but for a good minute, all I could see, especially after Creed 3 hit, everywhere I looked was Jonathan Majors. Now, I ain't heard a peep about after that incident. What did he build his house on? I think he built his house on sand because the Bible says that your gifts, we talk a lot about gifts. We talk a lot about finding our purpose and getting in our giftedness because our gifts will make room for us. Yeah. But Jesus says, that's not it. That's the house. Your gifts will make room for you. But listen to this. Your character is what keeps you in the room. And what good is it to be brought before kings and queens if your fruit ain't gonna remain? What good is it to be a hit if you're just a one-hit wonder? Because you're the equivalent of a broke clock. Anybody can be a one-hit wonder. That is not the evidence of godliness within you. But can you span decades at the top of the game? Jesus says, I want you to be there. I want you to be that rock. I want you to be that lighthouse. I want you to be that fixture. What a beautiful thing. Many of you all can appreciate this. What a beautiful thing it is when you can go back and forth to Selma or Paducah or wherever it may be, Philly for us, and you can drive it in your sleep. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Like I done been down that so many times until they change a major landmark. Like sometimes I'm in such a comatose, Brother Keith, driving. It's like I'm going down 90, and when I come back into a consciousness, like I don't know where I am, and I just look around and I'm looking for that identifier. And it's like, oh, there's that exit or there's that particular landmark, and I'm good. But man, I know like when I go to Alabama and many of those places I drove and been for years, but then it's been years since I've been. And I get down there in them backwoods and they done moved some of them old gas stations that used to be stable markers and old billboards that no longer exist. And I'm like, oh, shuckity, shuckity now. I'm out here and like those fixtures that were there, you can build and navigate because they're solid until they move them fixed points. They ain't fixed when they ain't fixed no more. He wants us to be that kind of fixed point for people trying to move through life that they can count on. It's a blessing when they come back and be like, y'all still here? We still here. We actually expect us to be, of course we still here. We God's people. You can count on us to be where we need to be, visible at the top of our game. Character. John Wooden said it's not about what people do. Do not confuse activity with achievement. Since the truest measure of a man is what he will do when he thinks nobody's looking. See, Jonathan Major's house looked good on the outside. But what kind of man was he? I don't know. What did he do when he thought nobody was looking? How do you build your house and on what principles is it built on? You've got to build on solid character. I asked Webster, what is solid character? Good mental and moral qualities. You want your house to remain? Jesus is saying you got to build them on good principles that produce strong mindedness. Let this mind that be in me be in you. And let the spirit that is in me be in you. Strong mentally and morally. Don't build your houses on whimsical thinking. Make sure your principles are solid. Make sure you're building anything you build it on truth. Build it around the spirit of truth that God has given to us. Find out what's real. And build on that. Ask Jesus about the things that you're trying to get into and ask the Spirit to reveal to you what is real. Particularly nowadays, you got to ask, what is real? Help me to see the real in my business, in my life, in my house, in my relationships, in the future that I'm trying to build. Help me see what's real. But deeper than that, saints, do not get caught up in the masses and start letting your morals become corrupted. Because it's not enough to get in the room and to be fruitful, but you need your fruit to remain. And the quickest way to kill your fruit is to build it on immoral practices. Oh, it ain't about what you do when everybody's looking, but the true measure of who you are is what will you do when you think nobody's looking. Will you cut corners? I ain't nobody gonna see what's behind this wall. But when the winds blow and the floods rise, and folks start tearing back and peeling back, oh man, and the truth come out about you, it could be the end of your rise. What's the point of putting in all of this effort? Y'all know how hard it is to build these houses we building? What's the point of getting that far along only to let the struggles of life really identify who you are? I tell you this all the time. I'm concluding on this point. This is just for my relationship people. Okay, how cute he is, how cute she is. Okay, how good they look, how nice they are. Okay, how nice the restaurants are you've been going to. Okay, how good the dinners are she's been fixing you while you are in this dating stage. I don't know nothing about you until we hit a struggle.
Amen.
I need to know what kind of meal I'm getting when we in the struggle. I need to know what kind of baby and sweetie I'm gonna be when you pissed. I need to know, what kind of stabbing you do when we going through, because you don't know what you got. You want to know a person's character, you won't know it until the winds start blowing, until the floods start coming. Throw a rock and see who howls. Drunk mind speaks a sober heart. One of them ways that goes. You know what I'm saying. We don't know until the true serum gets in there, until the squeeze gets on. What are you building on? Build on a solid rock that you can trust and depend on. Are you a solid rock? Can people trust and depend on you? Are you just here for a minute? Or are you stable? I don't know. How do I become more of that? Jesus says, those who hear me and do the things that I would have them to do. And I'm telling you, these things that Jesus gives unto us produce sound minds and moral fibers. What's wrong with our country? We've lost our moral compass. And folks have also lost their minds. What about you? Are you solid as a rock? Or are you as weak as sand? It looks good. They both look good initially. Until life starts life. How you gonna feel about me when I lose my job? How you gonna feel about me when my business goes bankrupt? How you gonna feel about me when I make a bad decision? How am I gonna feel about you when you gain 10 pounds, 20 pounds? How are you gonna feel about me when I cut my hair, when you cut your hair? What about when I decide I want to change directions? How are you gonna feel? What about, when we don't agree, when we don't see eye to eye? How solid are we? Or are you gone? Anybody know what I'm talking about? Are you gone?
Amen.
As soon as the wind start blowing, you gone. As soon as it starts howling a little bit, you gone. You bailing out. You taking your marbles and running. Or are you ride or die? As solid as a rock. Come on, stand to your feet. Let's sing the invitation song. Two men, doesn't matter who they are. Life makes us equal. But what they build on makes all the difference in the
Which
final
one?
analysis.
120. My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' love
and righteousness.
I cannot trust the sweetest friend of holy living on Jesus' side. On Christ the Son, on Christ stand, on
In sinking sand, on the ground, sinking sand.
when darkness fails and
Stretching grace
in every heart storm
in
my anger holds with
fill
on
in sinking sand, on the ground, in sinking